Alright, so earlier today we got a story about Toya Wright, who just so happens to be the ex-wife of rapper Lil Wayne. And the story was about how her two brothers were shot and killed in Louisiana. I find this story interesting for the fact that in June I had mentioned that Lil Wayne had to emergency land in Omaha, and he was on a plane just like Prince had to emergency land just days before he died. And I even mentioned the fact that Lil Wayne landed in Omaha. He was from Louisiana or New Orleans, Louisiana. I talked about after Obama's final State of the Union address, the places that he went the next 2 days. He went to Omaha, Nebraska, and then Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And then of course, about a month later, we got the death of Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge. Also, Philando Castile in Minnesota, where Prince is from. I even talked about Omaha, Nebraska in regards to the birthplace of Malcolm X, and a whole lot more of stuff. When Obama went to Baton Rouge, he gave a speech at McKinley High School. McKinley, William McKinley, the assassinated president, his vice president was Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt gave a famous speech in Falcon Heights, Minnesota, just days before William McKinley died. He gave a speech about the Big Stick. Baton Rouge is named after the Red Stick. So anyway, let's just move on. I just kind of wanted to give a short recap of the reason I have talked about Lil Wayne before. So now we get the death of his ex-wife's brothers, right? The Wright brothers. Just think about the Wright brothers. In regards to Lil Wayne emergency landing on a plane and whatnot, the Wright brothers credited for the first controlled flight or whatever, is the first major controlled flight. So just interesting. Toya Wright's brothers die. Lil Wayne, her ex-husband, has to emergency land in Omaha on a plane. Interesting in regards to that, so if you read out New Orleans, Louisiana, and Gematria, it equals 83. Also, if you write out Wright's brothers, because this is her brothers, not the Wright brothers, just Wright's brothers, it equals 83. Also, this is a total tribute to Hillary Clinton and also Donald Trump, which I'll show later. But if you write out election, it also equals 83. Election, the small way, even equals 38. The mirrors of 83. Like I said, I'll get to that here really quick. On my old post, when I talked about Lil Wayne emergency landing, I talked about how Lil Wayne equals 38, Omaha equals 38, Minnesota equals 38, Chanhassen, or wherever the town in Minnesota that Prince lived in, equals 38, Prince equals 38, the word death equals 38. Also, Louisiana also equals 38. Another very interesting thing, the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, their first successful airplane flight or whatever was in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. Kitty Hawk even equals 38 in Gematria. And another weird thing, I always talk about how I experience weird things, and I've been talking about it for a long time, but so Obama gave his final State of the Union address on January 12th, 1/12, a lot like the number 112. For whatever the reason, last night, in my dreams, I kept being shown the number 112. I don't know, I can't remember a specific example, but I remember every time I woke up, all I could think about was the number 112. Very weird. I even went to bed. My daughter woke me up 1 hour and 12 minutes after I had went to bed. I looked at my clock to set my alarm or whatever. It was 1 hour and 12 minutes. Then I woke up at 11:20. If you take off the 0, it's even 112. I even got up and I turned on the TV, and on the TV there was some commercial that had the number 112 on it. And I was like, that is some pretty strange stuff. So then I get on CNN.com, just trying to check out the fake news and whatnot. I've been gone for a few days. I didn't have internet. And it's just interesting. This is the first story that really caught my eye. I was like, oh, that's all about Lil Wayne and whatnot. Kind of weird. The Wright brothers talking about the flight. Anyway, that Wright brothers flight just so happened to be 112 years ago. It's actually 139 days, though, before the 113th anniversary. The flight was on 12/17 of 1903, which stuck out a lot to me because that is Pope Francis's birthday. It's actually 33 years to the day before Pope Francis's birthday. And in my previous post, I had talked about Lil Wayne is 33 years old, and he turned 33 years old on the day that Pope Francis was in Philadelphia last year. Pope Francis, of course, the first Jesuit pope, or at least the first one to admit that he's a Jesuit. And then Lil Wayne was even born on the Jesuit order's anniversary on September 27th. And when Pope Francis was in Philadelphia, he also gave a speech on Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address lectern. So just one more thing pointing out the whole race war type of stuff with the Alton Sterling and Philando Castile and Malcolm X being born in Omaha. Philadelphia, also where the Fresh Prince is from. Just interesting that we had the death of Prince. On Queen Elizabeth's birthday of all days, Prince equals 38. Prince also equals 65, like Philadelphia the small way. Philadelphia comes from the book of Revelation as well. In Jewish gematria, Pope Francis equals 404. Prince Charles, who would become the new king if Queen Elizabeth died, Prince Charles equals 404. His wife, Camilla, would be Queen Camilla, that equals 404 in Jewish gematria. There was 404 verses in the book of Revelation. It was also 404 years after the King James Bible came out. Pope Francis even arrived in the United States at 4:04 p.m. on his 923rd day as Pope last year. Anyway, Lil Wayne, the big way, equals 101 in gematria, just like Philadelphia. Also, Louisiana equals 101. And in regards to the 33 stuff, 33 is the highest degree in Scottish Rite Freemasonry. If you write out Lil Wayne's real name, Dwayne Carter Jr., it equals 165. Just like if you write out Scottish Rite, it equals 165. The last album that he put out was called No Ceilings 2, that equals 165. The day that he landed in Omaha was June 13th, which is the 165th day this year because it was a leap year. And also it's written as 613 or 13/6, the 112th prime number, 613. So just super interesting. I would have dreams and just be connected to the number 112, and then I see it throughout the day. Anyway, notice Toya right here. Born in 1983, remember New Orleans, Louisiana equals 83, election equals 83. And notice that she's born on October 26th, which just so happens to be Hillary Clinton's birthday as well. So we'll get to that in a second. So her spouses were Lil Wayne until 2006, and now she's married to Mickey Memphis Wright. Just interesting in regards to Memphis, that is also comes from the book of Revelation, Memphis, Philadelphia. If you go from the day her brothers died to her birthday, Hillary Clinton's birthday, a span of 88 days, also 2 months, 27 days. We talked a lot about this in regards to satanic rituals. Also 227, a number connecting to pi. But New Orleans, Louisiana, the big way, equals 227. And this just so happened to happen 227 days before Toya Wright's 33rd birthday even. So I talked about Lil Wayne landing in Omaha on June 13th. 13/6 is how they'd write it in other countries. When he landed, it was 136 days before her birthday. And also, I can't help but think about Flight 804 once again, just because it was the most recent ridiculous missing airline story that we've got. But Flight 804 was 2 months and 13 days before her brothers died, which is interesting because this year, the day that her brothers went missing was the 213th day of the year. 213 is the first day of Lupercalia as well. It's a day that you often see in regards to sacrifice and a whole lot more to Lupercalia, but I'm not going to go that in depth with it. Just know that 213 is usually a number you see around sacrifice and death and whatnot. If you write out Toya right, it equals 146 and 56, numbers that I've seen tons in regards to Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. Allen Iverson has identical gematria. Larry Brown has identical gematria. Philadelphia had the Declaration of Independence. It's where the Declaration of Independence was signed by 56 signers. The first was John Hancock, who died at age 56. The last person to die who signed it was Charles Carroll III. He died 56 years after signing it. Anyway, Flight 804 was leaving Paris, France, that equals 56, just like her name. It was supposedly ISIS, right? ISIS equals 56. It was going to Cairo, Egypt, that equals 56, and it even had 56 passengers on it. So in regards to Hillary Clinton and also Donald Trump, pretty interesting. If you don't include the end date on these calculators, I've talked about how it seems like they've been coding both lately. I've been noticing a lot of, things. So this one includes the end date, but if you take away the end date, it would be 73 days, 2 months, 12 days, which would still be interesting, but and all of these were. I did all of these, including whatever, just wanted to point out that they were all including. But if you do it when you don't include it and you go from the day of the deaths to Toya Wright's 33rd birthday and also Hillary Clinton's birthday, it's a span of 87 days. If you write out the word Clinton, it equals 87. Also interesting, in my previous post about Lil Wayne, I had talked about Baton Rouge, Louisiana equaling 219 in gematria, and the 219th day just so happens to be 8/7, August 7th, a number that is super important in regards to Queen Elizabeth II, also Pope Francis. But anyway, if you go from the day Lil Wayne emergency landed in Omaha and you don't use the end date, it's also a span of 48 days before her brothers died. Donald Trump in gematria equals 48. So interesting. It connects to Hillary Clinton, also Donald Trump. Even her name, 146, as a date, 14/6. That is the day that Donald Trump was born, June 14th. Another interesting 38, if you go from 7/31 to Election Day, it's a span of 3 months, 8 days. Remember, election equals 38, also 83. The thing that really stuck out to me about this, other than the Lil Wayne connection, the connection to Hillary Clinton, so her name is Toya Wright. And remember, just a week or so ago, we got a story of how the University Wright State pulled out of the presidential debate on September 26th. And this as well was a tribute to Hillary Clinton. It was also on July 19th, the day I've talked a lot in regards to the death of Prince and Prince Charles. I'm running out of time. I want to get this in 15, but University pulls out of the debate. It's Wright State. It's moving to Hofstra, that equals 87 and 33, identical to the word Clinton. If you write out Hofstra University, the small way, it equals 87, just like Clinton. If you go from the day they pulled out of it to Election Day, 113 days. It was also 1 month, 13 days before the debate. Also 30 days before Clinton's 69th birthday. The 30th prime is 113. 113, a big number often seen around hoaxes. But anyway, also it was 69 days before the debate, which interesting because Hillary Clinton will be 69 years old in October. 9/26, also interesting because it's 64 days before Israel celebrates its 69th anniversary of being recognized. Israel equals 64. 9/26, also the day that Pope Francis first went to Philadelphia last year. Philadelphia is celebrating its 334th anniversary this year, 33 days before Israel celebrates being recognized on the 334th day of the year. Some other 269s I thought were interesting is that, in other countries they write the date September 26th as 26/9. In a non-leap year, it's the 269th day of the year. A lot of things were very significant to Pope Francis's visit to the United States last year. On his 923rd day as Pope, he went to the White House at 9:23 on 9:23. Tons of other stuff with that, but if you write out September 23rd, it also equals 269. If you write out Donald Trump assassinated equals 269. Who knows? Just found that interesting. The 269th prime, or 269 is also the 57th prime. Obama is the 57th term president, which means the next president to be in office will be the 58th term. The word Freemasonry equals 58. It's also interesting because if you go from the day her brothers were murdered to 9/26, including the end date, a span of 58 days. Also, if you write out her real name when she was married to Lil Wayne, it equals 58 and 139 Freemasonry. Both ways equals the same as her name. The deaths even occurred 58 days before Lil Wayne's 34th birthday. And that's if you don't include the end date. So, just something to think about. One last thing, maybe nothing. We'll see. Maybe we'll start seeing something crazy with the New Kids on the Block. But when I think of right, I think of You've Got the Right Stuff. Just throwing this out here. Doesn't necessarily have to mean anything, but we also have like Jordan Knight. I've talked a lot about Michael Jordan and whatever. But I just typed it in just to see what it was in Gematria. If you write out right stuff like that, it equals 58 as well. Also, New Kids on the Block equals 73. And Hillary Clinton also equals 73 in Gematria. And remember, Flight 804, without the end date, was 73 days before her brothers died. So, who really knows? I just found that kind of interesting. Thought I'd throw it out there. Maybe we'll start seeing some weird story about New Kids on the Block or something in regards to it. Anyway, I feel like I'm missing something in regards to this, but, just putting it out. Maybe eventually someone will comment or whatever, and I'll put it all together in my brain. I don't know. Just feel like there's something that I'm not seeing completely with this. But there's definitely something going on with the right in regards to Hillary Clinton. But, yeah, anyway, have a good night.